Your vision for the city.
Louisville is imploding right now, and everybody is looking for what the next thing is going to happen. This weekend was horrendous, and we can't have this anymore. So the top priority of anybody in this campaign, anybody in this room, is safety, safety, safety. And because I am an experienced mayor for 12 years, I understand how to run a police department. I have a chief that will be coming with me downtown in some capacity. I understand on day one what that means. I understand that we also have to have the economic development in the future for this community to grow, for this community to survive, to bring the people here to work here. And to do that, we have to have the education out there for the kids to learn. And that starts at preschool and ends after high school to going into college and the trades. So as I look to the future of this community, I want to say, let's quit following those that we want to be like. Let's quit being the second class of cities. Let's start being the first class of city that we are. I was at a function one time with Denny Crum, who was in the room, and I said, Denny, have you ever gone to a championship game and said, I want to come in second? It's time Louisville stops saying, I want to be like Indianapolis, I want to be like Nashville. I want to be the leader that others want to follow. I want to be like Louisville. So let's look and take what they have and let's make it better and make Louisville the city that everybody will be proud of, that you'll want your grandkids to grow in the future.
Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you all for taking time. Thank you to GLI, thank you to WLKY, and thank you to each of you for taking time out of your busy personal and professional lives to spend some time talking about the future of Louisville. There are great challenges across this city, but I think this room is a reflection of the opportunity that we have in this city. Because just like you all in your businesses and in your personal lives, when you all see challenges, we see even bigger opportunities ahead. And that's what this race has the opportunity for our city. The opportunities to move past the challenges of today and into the future for Louisville. And you all, I know, want to be part of the solution. That's why it's so great to be here, and it's so wonderful to hear that this is a record-setting crowd to come to this event, because it's a reflection of the passion and commitment of love for our city of Louisville, that even with these challenges, there are people throughout this entire city that want to be a part of the solution. I'm not running for mayor for incremental change. Incremental change is not an option. It's not of interest to me, and I know it's not of interest to you. We have huge challenges across this city, starting with public safety. We need to work together on these challenges, that even when we disagree, that's okay, because together, we can accomplish great things. We can accomplish great things in Louisville, make this a safe city, bring down the amount of violent crime. We can improve education by starting with universal pre-K, so every 3- and 4-year-old has an opportunity to succeed. We can address our homeless crisis and build more affordable housing together. These are things that we can do when we work together with business community, with the public sector, with organized labor, with members of the community throughout the city. And I'm excited to have this opportunity to run for mayor, and I'm more excited to be your next mayor of Louisville. Thank you all very much for having us here today.
Well, our first topic is something that I've heard both the candidates say is going to be one of their top priorities: public safety. Louisville has seen an alarming increase in violent crime and homicides over the past 3 years. And we know it's not something that happened overnight. So it's something that's going to require some short-term solutions, but it's also something that's going to require long-term solutions as well. So we'd like to know what each of you would do as candidates to reinstate a sense of safety in our community, and also which existing programs would you continue to support and invest in, such as group violence intervention, for example. Mr. Greenberg, this one is you first.
This is without a doubt the #1 issue, is making Louisville a safer city. After the unwanted and surreal experience that my team and I faced earlier this year, I might not know why or how I'm still here with you all today, but I sure know what I'm going to do. I'm going to work day and night with each of you, with members of our police department, with community leaders across this entire city, with victims of crime, with their families, medical professionals, mental health professionals, to make sure that Louisville is a model for how you improve safety in a city. I want people talking about the Louisville solution being a solution where you take a violent crime crisis like we have and you turn it into a safer city across the entire city. We should aspire to have the best police department in America. To me, that means the most trained, trusted, and transparent police department. But we cannot just police our way to safety. Group violence intervention that you mentioned, Mark, is a phenomenal program that we need to invest more resources in. It has worked amazing results in other cities, and we need to implement that here. We need to work and invest more in our mental health professionals, improve the deflection programs that we have to provide people with the mental health services that they need before a crime is committed. And we also need to invest in the root causes of poverty. These are all things that are short and long-term solutions that will make a difference. And finally, we need to encourage our national leaders to take action and get all of these illegal guns off of the street to make Louisville safer. On Saturday, I was marching with my son, with other youth from around the city that were leading in chants of enough is enough. And then just on Saturday night, 5 teens are shot at Waterfront Park. Enough is enough. Join me in making Louisville a safer city.
As was said many times, this city is either perceived to be unsafe or is actually unsafe. There's 2 situations we have to cure. And as a person that has led a police department for 12 years, I understand going in day 1, the perception of what I say people will believe, because they understand that I know how to run a police department. They understand, as I mentioned a moment ago, what Rick Sanders brings to the table as a person that was professional as DEA in command, and when there was gangs in Chicago, he was the KSP commissioner, and he's been our chief, and he was a boots-on-the-ground police officer down in LMPD or Jefferson County. But as we look to the future, what do we need? We need the carrot and the stick. We need community policing where the people know their police officers. The police officers look like them. They understand their community. And in order to do that, we have to hire police officers. We have to get the 300 police officers that we're short. Back when Mayor Jerry started the merger, when we merged the county and the city together, the 2 police departments came together. There was probably close to 1,300 police officers at that time. We're sitting at 900 or less, and we have more population, we have more crime, but yet we can't get the officer to apply. What does that mean? That means in J-Town, when we had 2 people that we needed 2 jobs, we had 100 LMPD apply. But as we look to the future, GVI, we have to have somebody that knows how to do that. But we also have to have the soft side of policing, where we have the social worker. We have the people in our Angel program that we have, where it's a drug addicted. We have the victims advocate that we can help those that are victims of crime. If we do that, we can have a community that everybody feels safe, both perceived and reality of downtown and as a community as a whole. So as we look to where we want to bring Louisville in the future, we want to bring it to where it has the best of the best police department and also the soft side of the police department, because we can't arrest our way out of this.
Well, if anybody's tried to buy a house recently, you know that the market is red hot. It is tough. There are hardly any houses out there to buy right now, and Louisville's development community has expressed the need for greater flexibility and more incentives so that they can spur investment in underdeveloped areas, so that they can continue to increase the housing stock, and so that they can create more affordable housing. So, what policy changes will you pursue to support more flexibility for development that will drive economic growth, employment, and of course, affordable housing?
It's me. Thank you. Okay. To say, what will I do? I am a sitting mayor. I know you're going to hear me say that many times, but I am doing that now and have done it in the past. Anywhere from when I first became mayor, I went to Frankfurt and created a BOZA board for Jeffersontown in order for businesses and community to move faster, farther. If we're going to do economic development, we're going to do housing in here. We have to make it fair. We have to make it efficient. and we have to be the smart housing where people want to be and live. We have to look incentives in the future to where they help the next generation to where they can have a house that they can afford. But we have to do the economic development to bring people here that is smart housing, smart economic development. When I look to what we've done in Frankfort, it makes a lot of sense to make Louisville a place where we all want to live. When we talk about J-Town, what we've done, we've taken zoning and we've created a new zoning class in order for businesses to be able to survive. We made it to where that we get in, help the business when they need help and move out of the way when they don't, because government shouldn't always be there. We should help the people become successful and grow in order for the future to be what they need to be.
Mr. Greenberg?
Affordable housing is an issue that the whole country is dealing with, but we're going to focus on what we're dealing with right here in Louisville. On the day I announced I was running for mayor, I proudly announced that in my first term, we would get 15,000 new affordable housing units under construction or built. That's about halfway to the goal of the needed 30,000 units that we're currently short throughout our entire city. We can and must do more. I do want to compliment the members of Metro Council that are with us today as other folks from the city for making over the past couple of years the largest investments in affordable housing that our city has ever made. We must build on that investment with even more money, leveraging federal sources, state programs, as well as local dollars to build more affordable housing across this entire city, not just in one part of our city. So what does that look like to me? To me, that means we're building affordable housing near high-quality, improved public transportation routes, where we find corridors of density and where we can spur development, not just housing, but other commercial activity. Let's build affordable housing near good-paying, career path jobs across our entire city. And when we talk about affordable city, let's just not talk about rental units, but also home ownership. Let's provide programs and opportunities in vacant and abandoned lots to individuals who want to own their own home and give them the opportunity that most of us in this room have to have a foundation, a place that we can call home, that we can also own, start building up some equity and wealth for our family. And finally, let's make it easier. Just like many other areas in the city, we as a city can do a better job of making it easy for people who want to build things in Louisville and who want to move Louisville forward. I'm very excited about that opportunity to work with colleagues in government and the private sector to do just that. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about economic development. During the past 7 years, GLI formed and led the Greater Louisville Regional Partnership, and Louisville has reaped the benefits of regionalism. Many business leaders believe that with a new administration, there is an opportunity to streamline the way Louisville does economic development, reduce redundancies, and continue embracing this idea of regionalism by shifting to a chamber-led structure similar to Nashville and Indianapolis. So how will your administration work with GLI to ensure that Louisville is well positioned to compete with peer cities in developing business and attracting talent? Mr. Greenberg, you're first.
Thank you. This is incredibly important to the future of our city. We have so many great local businesses here, so many great entrepreneurs in Louisville. My view is that our economic development strategy should start with investing in the local businesses, local entrepreneurs that are already in Louisville. Let's proactively reach out and ask business leaders, businesses large and small, working with organized labor, working with business leaders, what do you all need from the city to help you create more good-paying career path jobs? What do you all need to grow here? What do you need to attract other parts of your businesses to Louisville to build an even more thriving business community here? And so that would be a focus. Now, of course, when there are opportunities to recruit other businesses to Louisville that don't exist here, particularly when there are synergies with existing industries, by all means, we need to go after those targeted opportunities and win those opportunities to bring jobs to Louisville as well. I want to work with a strengthened GLI, a strong GLI with a strong city government economic development organization and others in the private sector to accomplish these goals. When Mayor Abramson and many of his colleagues from his administration at the table were here, I thought they had a great structure. There was a strong GLI, there was a strong economic development team in the city government, there was a strong downtown development corporation. We need to get back to the strength of all of those organizations and others that can work together well to revitalize downtown, to build businesses that are already here even bigger, to improve our public transportation, to make Louisville an even more welcoming city for new Americans who want to start businesses in Louisville, and also to those who want to work remotely in Louisville. There's a new opportunity to bring people to our city that can work anywhere. Let's bring them to our great city of Louisville.
On economic development, business attract business. Government does not attract business. The first contact, if I was going to move my business to another city, I would call another business to ask how the mayor and the people in that city are. I wouldn't call the mayor. We know what the mayor's going to say, right? It's a great city. Business needs to talk to business. That means GLI has to be the group that talks to the businesses that attracts them here. We have a great opportunity right now. There's a Ford plant that's going down in E-Town, a huge plant that's going down there, and there's 5,000 jobs there. There's probably 500 to 600 vendors that are going to be supplying that. That means those people have a choice from E-Town. They can either go south or they can go north. And my intention is to get those people to come north and use our vendors here. The first thing we have to do is the businesses that are in our community, we have to grow them and give them the ability to grow to provide the services that need to be provided at the Ford plant and any place else. We are coming out of a pandemic. We are coming out of racial injustice, and we're coming out of inflation that is incredibly high. As an accountant, I understand what to do with the inflation. I understand how to do the numbers. But as a business person and as a mayor, I know what it takes to bring economic development to a community, because Jeffersontown, even though you say it may be a small town, it's the 6th largest city during the daytime because we have the largest commerce in the park. And what we did during the pandemic, we went over and geocoded digitally to bring your job to our community. We figured we bring your job. It used to be you bring your company. We wanted to bring your job because we had the people move here and bring their job here. The company will follow. I did that across the state because I was the president of all the cities in the state, including Louisville, for several years. And during that time frame, there was a fear that the businesses would leave rather than come here. So as the next mayor, I understand what it takes to attract the business and the incentives that they need to come here as a secondary, not as a primary.
Our next topic is downtown Louisville. If you've been downtown lately, you've seen a lot of encouraging signs that it's coming back to life. We've got more tourism coming into the area. We've got increased infrastructure investment, but there are still some significant impediments, such as high office vacancy rates. So how will your administration encourage businesses and residents to embrace and invest in downtown? Mayor Deariff, this is yours first.
Well, as you just mentioned, Mark, the one key thing of downtown is safety. And so we have to get both the perception is downtown safe, and we have to get the reality of downtown safe. So back before we had merger, we had districts, police districts, both county and city. There was a total of 10 districts. Now we have 8. We need to move that back up to 10 so the police are small enough in units so that they have the ability to get neighborhood policing to where they have community policing. What that means is to put a district downtown Louisville, not a administrative, but a district downtown Louisville, so there's a presence for the police to be down there to have a safety. And get the people in the businesses, they get out of their car and they get to know the businesses. They get to know the people. But the next thing you have to do in downtown when we travel, what we've seen on successful cities, they have to be a living city, which means we have to have more places to live downtown and the ability to enjoy the downtown when you're there. When there's a vibrant downtown because the people live there, the downtown grows. And then we have to think of the incentives. The one thing people say, well, the office tires are going to be half full. No, they don't have to be. Ours can be completely full and Chicago can be empty. So what we have to do is we attract the people from Chicago, New York, and all the bigger cities, because during the pandemic, those people didn't want to be there. They wanted to be in a community like Louisville. Louisville has everything that they have, maybe on a smaller scale, more friendlier scale. We are family here. That's where people want to come in the future. That's where they want to enjoy. So as we look to downtown, we have to make sure it also represents what we are. We have to work and help the homeless, and I can go into that deeper, but probably there's a question on homelessness. But we also have to make downtown look great. When people come across the bridge, I don't want them to keep on going all the way to Nashville. I want them to see our town and say, this is where I want to locate. I want to stop here and stay here, not just visit here. So I want to be a part of this community.
A strong, safe, and vibrant downtown is key to having a strong, safe, and vibrant city. This is an area that I'm extremely passionate about. I've spent my entire career working to build strong urban neighborhoods, vibrant, unique, authentic, energetic, lively urban neighborhoods through great projects, one-of-a-kind projects that attract people from around the entire city and around the entire country and world. That's what we need to be focused on here in Louisville, is continuing to build on the strong momentum that we had before the pandemic to make Louisville's downtown authentic, unique, and busy night and day, with people living, with people working, and with people visiting from all across the city and all across the country. This is also an area we don't need any more studies. We have studied these issues for years. We all know so many great solutions, and let's work together on implementing these solutions. Let's start making it easier to do projects to take some of these surface parking lots that are downtown and help transform them into vibrant, mixed-use neighborhoods with people living, shopping, working, going to fun events. Let's get the city out of the real estate holding company business and take some of these downtown properties that they own and work with the private and nonprofit sector to transform them into new neighborhoods, into new developments that people want to spend time at and live in. And let's work with owners of office buildings right now to make sure that downtown is seen as the most inviting, interesting, and affordable place to do business, so that we build on the office environment situation that's going on right now in the city after the pandemic. These are all things that we can work on together to very quickly improve the trajectory of downtown, to get it back on the trajectory it was prior to the pandemic. Thank you.
That's a good segue into our next topic, investment and inclusive growth in the city's historically marginalized neighborhoods is critical. And it's important not just for those neighborhoods, but for all of the city. So how will you work with those communities, the neighbors, and institutions like the West End Opportunity Partnership to create more growth, and also to ensure that those investments are sustainable and they benefit the people who are actually living there already? Mr. Greenberg, this one's yours first.
This is a critically important issue. We all know, we be honest with ourselves, for far too long, too many parts of Louisville have been overlooked with investment. There are too many parts of the city that just haven't had the same level of investment. I want to work with you all and others throughout this entire city, and in particular, people who live in lower income portions of our city, people who live in predominantly black neighborhoods in Louisville, to ensure that the largest investments ever are made in these communities, in these neighborhoods, in the institutions that work there, in the people who live there, to make sure that every city and every corner of Louisville has the same opportunities for growth, has the same opportunities to be safe neighborhoods that we all expect from many of the neighborhoods that we live in this room. And I think there are many ways to do it, and there are many organizations that the city can, should, and must partner with to make sure it happens. We need to invest more in black-owned businesses. We need to make it easier for small businesses to have opportunities to participate in government spending opportunities when they're making investments. Support more black-led foundations. Support the creation of a black-owned bank or more black-led banks. We need to really, West End Opportunity Partnership that you mentioned is a transformative opportunity for money that's generated, for tax dollars that are generated in West Louisville to be reinvested in West Louisville. Let's make sure that's done in a transparent way, in a way that benefits the neighbors of the 9 West Louisville communities, make sure they have greater opportunity for input. Let's invest in protect not just homeowners in West Louisville, but also renters. These are many of just the start of things that we can do. There's a lot of great work that has been done over the past 2 years. It's long overdue. Under my administration, it will continue. We will continue to invest and will strengthen these initiatives in West Louisville, other low-income and black neighborhoods across the entire city. Thank you.
We need to get rid of the compass in this city. We so much talk about the West End, the East End, the South End, the Southwest. We need to unite everybody in this community working together. We need to have everybody working together for the betterment of everybody. We are a family, and as families, we help each other. Yes, we fight back and forth, but in the end, we help each other. When we look to the areas that need to be helped in housing, we have to take $100 million of this ARP money and invest it in housing in our communities for those that don't have the ability to do it now. We have to give them ownership, because when they get ownership, they get generational wealth. And I'm also, when we talk about a compass, we report what the compass says. We don't report about the neighborhood. The West End is made up of 9 neighborhoods. They're very proud of their neighborhoods. This county is made up of 80 cities. All the cities are proud of their cities. We have to unite everybody working together to help everybody. As we look for the business climate, yes, we absolutely should help the black community, the marginalized community, develop a business entrepreneurship. That is the storefronts. As a person that had a hardware store, I understand how hard it is to get up in the morning and do retail, and it's even harder now through the pandemic. But we also have to help the people be able to go farther, the black community, all the different communities that are hurting. We need to have them be able to be doctors, engineers, plumbers, everything that we need out there, we need to help them grow. But as a community, when you help them as a business, you need to stay and help them as a mentor. As we look to the future of housing, yes, we need to look at where housing is, to where the people that are going there have the ability to have the resources around them that they need, not just place them just because we said we need to put it there. So when we look at housing, we also have to look at the first house, the second house, and the third house.
Mayor Dare, if you were correct, we do have a question on homelessness, and it's going to be yours first. We've all seen, it's a national epidemic, and we see the encampments underneath overpasses, on sidewalks, and a lot of it's downtown, but it's kind of everywhere in the city right now. So what are you going to do to support those who are homeless in our community, to provide them with safe and stable housing, and how are you going to prevent and address the causes of homelessness in our community?
As a sitting mayor, we don't have as much homeless as we do downtown, but we understand what it takes, and we got to quit doing what is being done downtown. We're moving the homeless from one viaduct to another viaduct. That's the same as moving the chairs on a Titanic from one side to the other. The ship is going to sink. And it's not humane to have these people living on the street during the heat that we have today, or the freezing that we have during the wintertime, or the rain. We have to help these people when they need help. And we realize there's several different silos. Homelessness is not just one thing. It's at least 5 different things, and I can go even farther. In Jeffersontown, what we do is we have the Angel program. Those that are addicted can walk into my police department. We have over 300 locations nationwide that we can give you help, and we stay with you during that program. We have been doing this for 8 years. We have close to 100 people that we have helped. We have Victims Advocate, a spouse that is abused. She'll take the kids and jump in the car and leave home because she has no idea where to go. We have in our police department a Victims Advocate. As I mentioned before, this is the soft side that we have in policing. We can't have all the firm side. We have to have the soft side. But it's not an or, it's an and. So the victim's advocate goes out and helps that spouse go through the system. If I told you right now to go get an EPO on somebody, you wouldn't know how to do it or what to do it, and you just wouldn't do it. That's what's happening because the spouse keeps getting abused. That's what the victim's advocate does, helps them through the system and helps them get healed beyond that to get to a normal life. And then you have the veteran that came home, that can't adjust to a community. We have USA Cares, we have several other organizations. I just personally happen to be involved in USA Cares. They help that veteran. We have to have the ability to touch the person and move them off the street and give them help when they need help. We have the social worker that goes in and helps those that need help that may have a behavioral problem and knows where to take them and how to get them help and how to talk and what to do. So as you look to the future of homelessness, let's not just move them from one viaduct to another. Let's help them get off the street and not accept the fact that we have to have homeless, because Louisville's been known as the place to come if you're homeless, to the point where some cities are paying for people to get on a bus to come here. We should help those people today and not wait till tomorrow.
There's a great article in this morning's New York Times on how the city of Houston has successfully been working to end chronic homelessness in that city. I encourage everyone in this audience and everyone in this city who cares about the issue to read the article and think about what you can help learn from Houston's experience to implement here in Louisville. It's working with great organizations like Goodwill, like Volunteers of America, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul's, and other great organizations across this entire city that are working on this issue already. We need to give them more resources from the city, more support to address this issue. We also need to build more housing, as we've already talked about. As I've talked to folks that have been working on this issue for many, many years, it's clear that housing is a key part of the solution. And so we do need more buildings that can provide more housing for people who are currently homeless. That has to be paired with the support services so that they can help them have a new path on life. More mental health services, addiction treatment programs, job training, opportunities to understand what it is to pursue jobs in different careers, family reunification services. All of those paired with housing are a recipe for success to how to address this very important issue that's addressing our entire community. So just like Houston, this is a problem that can and must be solved. In Louisville, we'll do it the Louisville way. But let's have a sense of urgency about this issue. There are all these issues that we're talking about today. We need a mayor with a sense of urgency, an energy, and a willingness to bring people together in this room and from people from every, every corner of the city who want to work together to implement solutions to bring real meaningful change to make Louisville a safer city, a more vibrant city, and that's why I'm excited to be your next mayor of Louisville. Thank you.
Okay, our last topic is something that I've talked about with a lot of people in this room because it's affecting just about every industry out there, and that is workforce development. It's something that is affecting all industries. It is threatening to slow progress and momentum, and it's contributing to these supply chain problems that we keep having. Listen to this. Louisville's labor force participation rate was 63% in 2021. That's an all-time low for the city. So what are you going to do to address the labor shortage in the short term and the long term? And what are you going to do to address some of the things that are keeping people from joining the labor force, like access to affordable childcare? Mr. Greenberg, this is yours first.
This is an opportunity where GLI, the city government, and others throughout the entire city can really work together to build on what's already happening. Because, like you say, workforce development is so important. And creating more good-paying, career path jobs for more people in Louisville has to be one of a priority for everyone who's in public service. Working with investing in programs like Evolve 502, so more Jefferson County public school students have the opportunity to pursue an education beyond high school. Working with organizations like Kentuckiana Works that have been doing great work for many years. All of that is important. But we also should acknowledge that not everyone need or has to go to post-secondary education anymore. There are so many great opportunities for good paying career path jobs. There are so many opportunities to start businesses that can start to build household wealth for people that don't involve a 2 or a 4-year degree. And we need to recognize that and change the perception about that and support individuals and provide them with training, working with trades and organized labor to give them skills to succeed if they choose not to go to college. And also childcare. That's one of the reasons why I'm a proud and vocal supporter of universal pre-K in Louisville, so that every 3- and 4-year-old child in this city has the same opportunity to succeed. And we can do it. There is so much money in philanthropic organizations and foundations across this entire city, across this entire country. So while it is a very expensive project to have the resources, to have the infrastructure, the teachers, to make that a reality, we can go to some of the largest foundations across the entire country and ask them to invest in our city, invest in Louisville, put us on the map for the right reason, so that every 3- and 4-year-old child has the opportunity to start their education off right, and every parent or grandparent has the opportunity to pursue a good paying career path job, knowing that their 3- and 4-year-old child is in good hands in the child care pre-K establishment. Thank you.
As we look to the future of what jobs mean, it's changed since the pandemic. It changed since the evolve of the digital age of are people going to come back to work? We, as we said, we did a digital connection to bring your job here. We didn't necessarily go after the owner, as I said. We wanted to bring the job here to be a part of here. What does that look like? How do we refill our downtown? The government needs to work with business on incentives to redo the offices of the future. Our incentives in Frankfurt right now are manufactured base, and we have a fantastic manufactured base with Ford and GE and other manufacturers. But the incentives have to be office based, tech based. We have to attract the other businesses here. We have to have the incentives to be able to attract the businesses here. In Jeffersontown, we have the jobs program, J-Town Economic Business Savings, to bring your job here, and we will reward you for doing that. That has created an average salary of $68,000 that incentive alone. So as we look to the future, we have to have a mayor that understands how to work in Frankfurt. For the last several years, I've been on the GLI board, and we collaborate as a president of KLC. We collaborate every year on what we go to Frankfurt with. We work together on what's great for Louisville. I could tell you right now, last week, we met with all the different large cities. Louisville didn't show up. And we start setting where we're going to move the city in January 1. 2 weeks from now, I'll meet with the rest of the cities across the state and start sending the agenda. In that same time frame, we'll be working with GLI and other people. So as we look to the future, it's both what incentives we can get out of Frankfurt, but it's also, as mentioned, the pre-K. We have to be able to bring all kids up to the pre-K level. I started that 7 years ago with another mayor called Glenn C. We looked at what it takes to bring the kids up to grade level in order for everybody to succeed. As you all know, we stop at a point because the time stops, not because we're done talking. By the way, I just want to let you all know that. Sorry.
You guys have done a fantastic job sticking to it, and I appreciate that. We're going to move on to some questions from the audience. This first one, downtown is a hub for Louisville's healthcare industry and is home to more than 16,000 medical workers. That's pretty impressive. What is your vision for growing this sector and keeping downtown the regional hub for healthcare? And I believe that you'll go first on this one, Mayor Dearth.
The one thing we've always said that we have 3 sectors here, and for some reason we've never included healthcare in that sector. But wouldn't you love if all of a sudden, if you had a major illness, this is the place to come? What attraction, if you look at the numbers, what the healthcare industry brings to our community, it is overwhelmingly the most successful place you'd ever want to come. You don't want to have to drive to Cincinnati if your child has a problem. You don't want to have to go to another city. You want to be here. And in order to do that, we have to have a center that is known as the medical center. Whether it's all the hospitals working together, and by the way, they are. They have a fantastic group right now where all the hospitals are working together. What do we look like in the future of healthcare here? And it's not only the hospitals, it's the nursing homes, it's all the health industry. So as we look to the future, we should take Louisville and cherish that and grow that, whatever it takes. Whether it's working in Frankfort to help them with the incentives, or whether it's getting rid of the homeless that are around their place so they can have a campus effect. What great city wouldn't want a great health industry here? We have that now.
Earlier, we talked about the importance of a strong, vibrant downtown. Within that downtown, we have a gem, and that's our healthcare center, our healthcare campus. We need to invest and support those organizations that are part of that. The LuMed plan that was announced at the recent Glide trip last year, on last year's Glide trip, is an incredible step forward to make our medical campus downtown a gem, not just for Louisville and Kentucky, but for this entire country. As mayor, I will enthusiastically and proudly support implementing that LuMed plan to make it a safe campus, to make it a vibrant and beautiful and welcoming campus, a place that you want to be whether you're going to see a doctor or whether you're just looking for a respite from your day at work or when you're living and you're walking your dog at night. But the downtown medical campus should be one of the safest, most beautiful and welcoming places in support of the great organizations that are part of it. And as mayor, I will fully support it.
This next one is from somebody I think you all know, Perna Veer with VSOP Consulting. As a business owner who has gone through a recent expansion, I have experienced firsthand some of the inefficiencies of our current economic development structure. Are you supportive of changing Louisville's economic development model to eliminate the duplicative functions of economic development in our city and fund GLI to lead economic development?
Yes, I'm supportive of restructuring the way that economic development is done in the city. As we mentioned earlier, I'm supportive of a strengthened GLI, of having a strong economic development team within the city government, and also with working with other strong partners throughout the entire city. I think that's critical. I'm also very supportive of making sure that the city works better for business leaders, for entrepreneurs, for folks that want to develop and invest in our community. Something that I want to take from the hospitality industry, where we had a saying when I was with 21C Museum Hotels, we say yes. We say yes to our guests. We say yes to one another as colleagues. We need that same sense of hospitality in city government so that people want to invest. When people want to invest in our city, we make it easy. We help them. We don't always have to agree, and not every answer is going to be an emphatic, immediate yes. But we need that mindset to work with people who are looking to invest in our city to make it easier so that we can move Louisville forward and have a safer and more vibrant city.
The answer is yes. As I said before, business talk to business. Business don't talk to government. In Jeffersontown, we have the businesses do call us. They trust us. It's amazing how they trust us when we provide the wow and customer service. But in the future of attracting people to this community, the business community should be the first and foremost person that can go out there. We are doing this at GLI right now. As a member of the MSA group, that includes both Louisville, Jeffersontown, and all the counties around us, including Indiana. We have to get over ourselves that we're competing against Oldham County or competing against Clarkville. We are a community that is trying to attract businesses here, and businesses attract businesses. As we look to the future, we have to have GLI bring the business here, and then each community tries to sell them that the business is the best place to locate. Let's quit competing against each other and start looking about competing against Atlanta, France, Germany, China, and Russia, and bring the businesses here as a whole.
This one is from Steve Galt with the Stephen C. Galt Company. How would you work to strengthen the relationship between Louisville and the General Assembly, including getting involved in advocacy and legislation being addressed? And I believe this one's you first, Mayor Deer.
Okay. Well, as a sitting mayor, I have been doing this for 12 years. And as a person that was president of Kentucky League of Cities, I represented the cities all across the state and worked with the cities and counties and the legislators all across the state. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, the large cities met and started stating what we're going to do. 2 weeks from now, we'll have all the cities meet. And then we'll move on to the GLI board and the different homeowners board, and we'll work to what we're going to take to Frankfort. We can't wait till January 1 to start working bills. It will be too late. As a person that has done this, I have done the Farm America, a businesses in our community had to have a bill passed, and we did it within 3 months because we realized they needed it done. We have done the road fund, where I was one not for the higher taxes, but one that brought the reformula so that Louisville would have gotten millions of dollars. So as we look to the future, we can't wait till January 1 to say, I think I know what to do. We have to have somebody that is sitting here now working these bills, going to work them for the community of Louisville in the future on January 1 when session opens.
Working with Frankfort is critically important. Working with our Metro Council is also critically important. For both of those things, to me, it's all about partnerships and relationships. Elected officials might not agree on every issue. We might be from different political parties, and that's okay. We need to work together to find common ground, to find areas where we share the same goals and implement solutions so that we can invest more in Louisville, in our neighborhoods, and our people to move our city forward. And that's what I'll do every day as mayor. I'll work with people from all parties in Frankfort, working on building relationships now, having conversations, listening to people from every spectrum across the political spectrum to understand what their issues and concerns are. I also think it's important to have a stronger relationship between the executive branch and the city government and the legislative branch and Metro Council. Having that strong relationship is critical to moving the city forward, and I will make sure that I have strong personal relationships as well as professional relationships to those who are elected on Metro Council and those who are serving the state in Frankfort to make sure we can work together better than we are right now. Thank you.
Mr. Greenberg, you'll answer this next one first. How do you plan to support youth development and the local nonprofits who are supporting children in our community?
It's all about the future. It's all about investing in our children. And there are many great nonprofit organizations around the city that are doing important work. It's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the universal pre-K program that I spoke about earlier. I think there's real opportunity also to partner with JCPS and some of their programs to provide more services to kids, not just when they're in school, but also after. I proposed expanding our Summer Works program to being a year-round program so that more youth and teens have opportunities for after-school work, for work on the weekends, as well as during the summer, to teach them good skills there. Work with the academies at JCPS on some of the things that they're doing. This is to give kids more opportunities to succeed, give them more experiences, but also it's an issue of safety. The more kids and teens have opportunities to do things, the more they have enrichment opportunities, education opportunities, the less likely they are to pick up a gun and resort to senseless gun violence. And so this is going to be a key focus of mine. Thank you.
As we look to the future of our youth, we have to be able to show them there is a different alternative than what they see in front of them many times. We have to have the pre-K program that as I said, I worked on several years ago, but pandemic hit, to make sure every child is ready day one for school in order to succeed in the future. We have to make sure that the community centers are open all across this community and be able to give the kids all summer long something to do. Realize somebody cares for them. Realize that there is a future for them. And then not only the sports programs that we have across this town. Now, Robbie Valentine has a fantastic basketball program during the summer to teach our kids working together as a team, teach our kids that there is something out there to smile about, but also teach the kids that somebody really cares. So as we look to the future of Louisville, we have to look to how we're going to educate our kids, how we're going to give them a vision of the future, and how we're going to show them that they don't have to accept where they're at today, that anything is possible.
This next question drills a little deeper into one of our previous questions. What will your administration do to make development and redevelopment easier in this town? How would you respond to complaints that Louisville is unfriendly to growth? Mayor Dearth?
The one thing that in my administration that anybody who works for me understands, that we provide the wow in customer service. If you call in on a Thursday at 4:25 and you go home at 4:30 and a developer or a person calls in with a complaint or a pothole, they need help, you answer them right then. You don't put them in the answering machine and answer them in the future. That's typical government. But we have to be able to do the customer service, the development that allows people to be efficient and move forward faster, or people won't want to live here, people won't want to develop here. And then we got to look at the regulations that are bureaucratic and make them to where they are either easy to use, to perform. We want to make government the same way you all do your business. So if you think of somebody coming in your business and wants to ask a question or wants to ask a development, we have to do the same thing. We do our development process for a developer on parallel paths, so when they come to Jeffersontown, the development is ready to go, not start over.
I'm excited about tackling this challenge to make Louisville an easier place to do business, to be welcoming to those within our city and those outside of our city that want to invest in our city, that want to create jobs in our city. That'll be a big focus, as I mentioned earlier, bringing that culture of hospitality to all aspects of city government, to work together with people who are looking to invest in our city and create new jobs. Working not just with the development or real estate industry, but also working with entrepreneurs, working with organized labor, businesses large and small across the entire city. Everyone should have an easy, positive experience when they're reaching out to government, particularly when it's respect to investing in our city. We also need to invest ahead of the growth. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right now with all of this federal money that's been invested through the American Rescue Plan, and it's going to be invested in our city under the Infrastructure Act. We need to invest ahead of our growth to support this so that we can support growth in certain parts of our city, again, those that have been overlooked for far too long, as well as key areas like downtown that we need to revitalize right now. Thank you.
Okay, this next question cites the Pegasus Institute, and it says, according to the Pegasus Institute, Louisville homicides are not like other cities. And the person posing the question says, our homicides continue to go up while other cities had their peak homicide years in the early 70s and early 90s. So the question is, well, there's really a couple here. Is Louisville safe? Doesn't this speak to a reality and not a perception? So is this a reality or a perception? And how can we immediately impact the homicide rate? And Mr. Greenberg, I believe you're first on this.
Unfortunately, homicides are up. Last year it was an all-time high, and this year the homicide rate continues to be far beyond what any of us want. Already nearly 70 people in Louisville have been killed in 2022. That's nearly 70 people too many. Many others have been injured by gun violence. Their families, friends, neighbors, neighborhoods, and entire city have been impacted. So we must and can do something about it. We must, in terms of the immediate solutions that can be impacted, programs like group violence intervention that have had very meaningful success in other cities. Also, one of the things that we're seeing in Louisville this year is a rise in homicides that are a result of domestic violence. We need to invest more in domestic violence prevention. We need to invest more in organizations that support those who are victims of domestic violence and prevent domestic violence from continuing to plague this city. We also need to focus on suicide. Too many teens and too many adults are using guns to commit suicide. We also need to address that and invest more in mental health professionals that have the skills and the professional background necessary to help people with their issues before they commit a crime.
You do know you all have to clap or we don't know when to start. I just want to let you know that. The crime in this community is something that can't wait till to January 1. And just to let you know, as I've said before, Rick Sanders is second to none and will be coming downtown with me. So starting day one, starting right now, we are working with LMPD and all the different police departments to bring the crime down. But downtown, the parts that we don't control, when you talk about GVI, what you don't understand, we understand. He understands how to do that. It's not my job as a mayor, but as his job as DEA. They put the top 20 people in Chicago of gang leaders, cartel leaders, and they eliminated 18 of them within months. We have to do that in order to save our youth, because those leaders are driving our youth to do things that we do not want them to do. Cause crime, cause murders, cause violence. We also have to have the community policing where the community and the police department work together. We saw that at the Kroger shooting in J-Town. You never want to have to go through that as a mayor, never have to go through that as a community. The people were filming the Kroger shooting. It was horrendous. They didn't do that to show that there was a problem. They showed the police who the victim was, and we had them arrested in 3.5 minutes. So as we look to the future of what we have to do to solve this crime, we have to do community policing and get rid of the heads of the gangs.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for today. I think it's safe to say we have two fantastic candidates for Louisville's next mayor. Let's give one final round of applause